are seeing today. But in truth, we could not be in a better place. Not too far from here in central Connecticut lie the towns of Deep River and Ivoryton. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, workshops in these towns processed as much as 90% of the global trade in elephant ivory. Artisans fashioned elephant tusks taken from millions of slaughtered elephants into combs, jewelry, billiard balls, piano keys, and countless other products that found their way into New York City and through New York City to the rest of the nation and the world. Money from that ivory trade flowed into United States businesses and into the pockets of United States merchants. Thankfully, those days of industrial scale processing of ivory and trade in ivory in the United States are over. Even now, though, New York remains a key part in the remaining ivory trade, most of which today is illegal. In fact, some of the ivory that you see here today on display was seized right here in New York City, with this vibrant economy and tourist trade making it a magnet for wildlife traffickers. So laid out beside us is more than a ton of ivory, this lifeless pile of tusks and trinkets and decorations is a stark reminder of the many thousands of elephants that have been slaughtered and continue to be slaughtered to support the global trade in ivory, and generations of their progeny that will never be. So what you see here is a tiny, tiny fraction of the global trade in illegal ivory. Global demand for ivory today is soaring, fueling a slaughter of horrific proportions. It's not just ivory, but wild populations of rhinos, of tigers, great apes, and many of the world's other most beloved species could vanish in less than a generation unless we take action. And that's why today's effort is so important. And it's not just about the senseless death of wildlife. Many of the groups that are trafficking in wildlife products are trafficking in arms and drugs and human beings. They are contributing to the destabilization of nations in Africa. So it's not just about the wildlife. And it's a dangerous trade. The International Ranger Federation estimates that more than 1,000 game wardens have been killed by organized gangs of poachers in the past decade. More than 100 rangers lost their lives in the last year alone, leaving behind wives and children who will continue to struggle. So as these terrible impacts reveal what was once a local or regional African problem has become a global crisis, as increasingly sophisticated, violent, and ruthless criminal organizations have branched into wildlife trafficking. We're here because the United States is intimately connected to this slaughter. As the events of the last 2 years have demonstrated, though, the United States leadership is critical to stopping it. In November of 2013, we crushed 6 tons of illegal seized ivory in Denver, Colorado. And that crush drew worldwide attention. It galvanized efforts here and abroad to tackle this problem. And it built optimism that we can tackle this problem. The People's Republic of China, Chad, France, and Belgium, Hong Kong, and the Philippines followed our suit and destroyed ivory on their own. So here today, by crushing this ivory, we're taking steps to stop this trade, to say to the world, we will be a leader. We will join other nations in leadership to stop the trade, the illegal trade in ivory, and stop the killing of elephants. Some of the ivory here today comes from a Philadelphia art store whose owner was sentenced last summer to 30 months in prison for smuggling the elephant ivory, one of the stiffest sentences ever levied for a wildlife crime and a valuable prosecution. So we owe a debt of gratitude to our friends at the Department of Justice for bringing these criminals to justice and ensuring their prosecution. And that's a part of the President's global strategy for combating wildlife trafficking. It's marshaled dozens of federal agencies to this effort. So it's not just the Little Fish and Wildlife Service and our partners like Wildlife Conservation Society and World Wildlife Fund and African Wildlife Foundation. We're now joined by the Department of the Interior, the Department of State, the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense, the Treasury Department, the Customs and Border Patrol Agency. It's an all-of-government effort. It's an all-of-nation effort with our partners that are represented here today. We're posting law enforcement agents in countries like Peru, Tanzania, Thailand, China, Botswana, so that we will be more effective. We'll take the fight to the traffickers. We won't just be arresting poachers. We'll be taking the fight to the people who are making the money.
Yeah.
We're providing training and financial and technical support to range countries and partners to help them build capacity and stop the killing on the ground. I'm proud to tell you that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service will be partnering with Wild Aid on an international demand reduction campaign that we expect to complement existing efforts to engage consumers. Today's crush also sends a message to the traffickers whose pernicious greed is at the heart of today's poaching crisis. This administration, this agency, these partners here are committed to tracking you down, to ending your activities, to putting you behind bars, to ensuring that you are no longer a threat to our planet's wildlife. This is our fight. I hope and expect that what we do here today will galvanize Americans and people across the world to stand up for elephants, rhinos, and other imperiled species. I'd now like to invite Secretary of the Interior Sally Jewell to say a few words. In her time as Secretary of the Interior, Sally has been a ferocious advocate for international wildlife conservation. She continues to help us keep this issue front and center with the White House, with the United States Congress, with our international partners, and she has made it a key priority for the Department of the Interior. Secretary Jewell, it's our honor to have you here with us today.